The Reserve Bank hasn't changed its monetary policy since Julia Roberts was getting her revenge.
You work on commission, right?
MC Hammer was doing the typewriter.
Can't touch this.
And interest rates were 17%. But today, a long-awaited review is recommending a major rebuild to update our RBA.
My goal here throughout is a world-class central bank which is more effective, more transparent and more independent.
It was commissioned last year after Governor Philip Lowe told borrowers in 2021 interest rates would likely remain on hold until 2024.
Certainly sorry if people listen to what we'd said.
10 consecutive rises later, the RBA is set to be stripped of its rate-setting rights.
I support that change.
The current board will continue to oversee the central bank, focusing on employment and the economy, and a new institution will be set up employing financial experts to set interest rates. The government will lose its power to veto rate decisions, which they've never used anyway, and the new board will meet 8 times a year and hold mandatory press conferences.
Not about taking shots at anyone. It's not about one decision or one piece of advice or even one set of decisions. This is about making sure we've got the right combination of objectives and structures and processes and people to make the right decisions, difficult decisions, into the future.
The changes would bring Australia in line with the likes of Canada and the UK.
When fall the banks of England, England falls.
With both sides of politics already offering in-principle support.
We will now work with the Reserve Bank, other regulators and stakeholders and the Parliament to implement these 51 recommendations.
I think the result is a good step in the right direction.
But as the central bank's mistakes are laid bare, should Philip Lowe get another go at heading up RBA 2.0?
Your term ends in September. Are you hopeful or expecting another term?
If I was asked to continue, I would. If I'm not asked to continue, I'll find another way to contribute to Australian society.
Shane Wright is economics editor for The Age and SMH. Shane, why is this better?
Well, this is the first review of the Reserve Bank since Ultravox, Soft Cell and Human League were in the charts. And just as musical tastes have changed since 1981, so has central banking. And so over those years, central banks have got to learn that setting interest rates is not just the only job in town for them. And that's why you get to this sort of review, which says you have to become real experts, people who can really challenge the executive of the Reserve Bank and take into account a lot more moving parts around the entire economy.
Shane, how much time do you spend researching the cultural references that you bring to every RBA story?
Look, it's just a gift, Waleed, and I hope you noticed that Kate Bush was nominated overnight for a huge award. She's up against Harry Styles. Go, Kate Bush.
This whole idea of controlling interest rates to inflation, that's not likely to change. So will this actually mean much for borrowers?
Well, the aim is to actually make better decisions. And so it's not just about borrowers. I know we all worry about people with mortgages, but the central bank's job is actually inflation and full employment. Now, as anyone understands right now, inflation is a real problem. It hits those with the lowest incomes the hardest.
So did the report have anything to say about where the RBA had failed, not in its sort of promise-making, because I know that's been a big issue, what Philip Lowe said about interest rates staying where they were, but with its decision-making?
Yeah, and this is, look, the review looked at 3 separate issues, and this is between 2016 and 2019, and where the bank actually probably had interest rates too high. And that meant up to 250,000 people didn't have a job that otherwise they would have had. So there's Exhibit A. Exhibit B is what happened during COVID, where the Reserve Bank pumped a huge amount of money into the economy and probably has contributed to the inflation problems that we have now. And the review also looked at the inflation that is rampant right at the moment and says, look, the bank was too slow to work out, oops, we've got an inflation problem.
Shane, Philip Lowe said today that he didn't take this major overhaul personally, which sounds like something someone would say when they're taking it personally. Do you think he's hurting?
Look, I don't think he's hurting, but he knows, look, his job comes up in September. Either he will step away at that time or Jim Chalmers, the Treasurer, will hold him on for perhaps the middle of next year when these big changes are due to hit. But look, Lowe, despite all the criticisms of him, really does believe he's trying to do the best by every Australian. Like, yep, it's easy to mock a banker, but this is real public service in trying to make sure unemployment's low, inflation is low, every person who wants to work has that opportunity.
Shane, thanks so much for taking us through all that and the music charts.
Always a pleasure on both counts.